swag out there
and welcome to another episode of the Sartorial and Geek Podcast by Webster Style, where we talk about bow ties, comic books, and everything in between. I'm your host, Webster Style, the man, the voice, the fragrance, coming back one more time. And of course, let's jump right into the download. Now, this week's download is a very curious and quirky game, in my opinion, and is one that I definitely would not have started playing if it was not on Game Pass, and that game is Bugsnax. Now, Bugsnax, if I remember correctly, was a PS5 launch title. I know it still is a part of PlayStation Plus, so if you have PlayStation subscription service, it is there as well, but it's also found on a PS4, 5, Xbox One, SX, Switch, and PC, and it retails for the price of $24.99. Now, it's an adventure video game developed by independent game studio Young Horses. In the game, players explore a mysterious island and attempt to find and capture eponymous half-bug, half-snack creatures. All I have to say is this game is weird. It reminds me of kind of sort of Pokemon, not that you're catching them and taming them, but there's that collection and identifying aspect as well. And it's really weird when you find these Bugsnax and then you're feeding them to the island goers. And first of all, you're feeding these animals to them, or bugs/snacks to them. But then once they're eaten, these creatures, they take on like the characteristics of that bug. For instance, there's a bug that's part strawberry. When you feed it to the fellow that you're with, his leg turns into like a strawberry. There's another one that's like a shish kebab. You feed it to the other guy, his arm turns into a shish kebab full of fruit. It is so strange, but it's one that is very much accessible to gamers of all ages. It's weird enough to keep the adults' attention and colorful and interesting enough to keep children's entertainment or imagination going with what it is. It is definitely a quirky and peculiar game, I will say that, and it is one that I think that you can definitely get some enjoyment out of, especially if you're one to really like games where you're collecting and searching and you gotta catch them all, to use a Pokemon phrase. You gotta identify them all and collect them all as part of the ongoing story. So Bugsnax is an interesting game, but if you have one of those subscription services, check it out, even for the price of $24.99. As an older gamer, I would not necessarily recommend it, but if you're looking for something, if you have a younger gamer in your house and you're looking for a game to keep them occupied, I would definitely recommend Bugsnax as a game to give them to play, and I definitely think they will find hours of entertainment. So that's my download for the week, Bugsnax. And let's get into some short takes now. One of my favorite horror movies of all time is the original, it was not the original Dracula, but the most famous Dracula from, I believe it's 1932. I get my dates somewhat confused in that regard, starring Bela Lugosi as the eponymous Count Dracula. But Dracula, in the story of Dracula, he's always has his sidekick, his one to do his bidding while he's sleeping, in the case of Renfield. And they've now come up with a new twist on Dracula, where Nicholas Hoult is playing the namesake character in this modern update of Renfield, or Dracula, with Renfield being the title character. And it got a little action, a little PTSD trauma sort of group going on in this trailer, but it looks absolutely fun, and it's interesting because it reminds me of the sort of character that Holt played in the movie Warm Bodies. He's not a zombie, but the whole undead supernatural aspect of it, he really excelled in that movie, so I see a lot of that here. And then of course you have Nicolas Cage playing Dracula, Mr. Chew Up Hammer movie screen himself as playing Dracula. So I am really looking forward to the chemistry between these actors. I'm not sure if they've ever been in a movie together before, but Nicolas Cage is gold in everything. Many moons ago when I talked about Willy's Wonderland and just how not many actors can literally say 2 words the whole movie, and you're just like, they just command the movie, and it's insane and zany. And Nicolas Cage has made a name for himself in the past few years of doing really off the wall, zany sort of characters in movies in different varieties. Some more of a serious tone, some more of a comedic and outlandish, even horrific tone, like the one with the colors with the body horror, H.P. Lovecraft. I forget the exact name of it, but that was weird and scary and freaky, but zany nonetheless. So I'm definitely looking forward to Renfield when it comes out in April, I believe. Next up, we have a movie that I've been waiting literally my entire life for. My entire life, I have been waiting for this movie to come out. And it's not even a movie, it's a 4-part series on Hulu, and I literally just saw it yesterday. And let me explain to you. There are a few movie properties from my childhood which I absolutely love and revere that I hoped and wished they would continue. Many of them have been continued with lesser degrees of success and quality, I might add. But there was one that I literally was just speaking about as an example of some things a week or so ago that has never had a sequel, even though the movie itself teases comedically a sequel coming out. And the sequel I'm talking about that's finally coming out is History of the World Part 2. Based obviously on the sequel to History of the World Part 1 from the great Mel Brooks, and it is the first movie is so awesome. I feel like that's one of those Mel Brooks movies, and all those Mel Brooks movies from late 70s, early 80s, actually really mid 70s. I think what Blazing Saddles was, I feel like it was 72, but it might have been later than that. But Blazing Saddles, Young Frankenstein, I feel like History of the World is one of those movies that nobody really talks about like that. I don't hear it when I hear discussions of Mel Brooks movies. And that is like my absolute favorite one, because I think that was really the first one that I ever saw. I didn't see Young Frankenstein until I was an adult. Blazing Saddles, the same. I didn't even see Robin Hood Men in Tights, even though I was around that adolescent age in the early 90s when that came out. And Dracula Dead and Loving It, was that Mel Brooks? I'm not sure. I was kind of turned off by that one. I wasn't interested in that one, simply because that was around the time or the Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula came out, and I really wasn't having any sort of spoofs on that because I absolutely loved that movie even till this day. But History of the World Part 1 it's such a cerebral comedic movie. There are so many gags I got as a kid, but when I became an adult or even a teenager, and I got a lot of the adult gags, oh man, it was hilarious how they just poked fun at history. It's good to be the king. That's all I got to say. And it's great that History of the World Part 2 is coming out as a 4-part series in March on Hulu. I cannot wait for that. Hulu, they are earning my $8.99 for that month. Definitely. Next up is the trailer, or the latest trailer, for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Now, this is a movie that when I originally reviewed the original trailer, I wasn't that high on. It looked like it was going to be more than what it should have been. Let me tell you, I am sold with the second trailer. This second trailer, it really portrayed the grandness of what was going on, but unlike the first trailer, it did not forego the heart and the humanity that makes Ant-Man such a relatable character, in my opinion. So I am definitely looking forward to this when it comes out February 17th. I hope people go see it. I know some people talked about Marvel fatigue and this and that, but I think that this is definitely Ant-Man that you want to go see in the theater based on it. And Jonathan Majors as Kang. I am so looking forward to the range that he brings to this character in the next couple of years. We already saw him in Loki as He Who Remains, and now seeing him as a full-fledged version of Kang the Conqueror in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. My questions are, is this the variant that we're going to see throughout the series, the phase 5 and phase 6, or are we going to see different variants before we get to the main one that is going to cause the secret wars and everything. I am so intrigued about how this is going to go. So I am definitely looking forward to Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. And the last bit is a bit of movie news, not so much a trailer, but it goes back to that whole Marvel, in this case Phase 4, and Michael Giacchino, who directed the beautiful Werewolf by Night, has been signed on to direct the remake of the 1954 sci-fi movie Them. I nearly peed in my pants, metaphorically speaking, not for real, when I heard this news. If you could not get a perfect project to remake and a perfect director, as just a match made in heaven as far as I'm concerned, if you don't know what Them is a 1954 movie which looked at the effects of atomic bomb testing in the, I want to say, New Mexico, Arizona desert, and it ended up resulting in the creation of giant ants. You've probably heard the sound used in many movies over the years, but it is a masterpiece of 50s horror and is one of my favorite 50s horror movies. It's played so straight, even though it can be so silly with these giant ants, which if you watch this 1954 would look absolutely real. It is a great sci-fi movie from the 50s, and one that I think stands out above a lot of its other contemporaries at that point in time. So to have that being remade by Michael, and what could be, the 60th or 70th, oh my goodness, 54, 70th anniversary of that movie. It's amazing to think that 54 will be 7 years ago. It's gonna be 70 years ago come next year. It's something that I'm definitely looking forward to, and I would definitely be in the movie theater for that. So that's my take on the short takes. We'll take a break and come back with the long-awaited return of the long box. Next up is the long box, and with this edition, we're looking at the remaster of a comic that set a standard for comic book storytelling back in the 80s, in my opinion. And that is, in this case, we're looking at G.I. Joe Silent Interlude, which was released by, I believe it was IDW back in 2014, which I just found out about. I may get those dates a little bit incorrect as far as when this book actually came out. But when it came out is irrelevant, because Silent Invasion is the story that defined G.I. Joe back in the 80s. It defined what G.I. Joe was in the comics and how adult it was. G.I. Joe number 21 released back in, I want to say, 84 from Marvel Comics, with Larry Hama doing the writing and art, and then Steve Leiloa's finishes. To have a completely silent comic book was something that was an anomaly then. And for them to be able to tell the story without a word, again, it was not something you saw in comics then. Now we've seen it many times redone over the past 30 plus years, but when they did it, it was unique, it was original, and it really showed the powerful impact and the powerful storytelling medium that comics could be. So Silent Invasion collects, and I forget the issue of the G.I. Joe Secret Files that it collects, that's also done silently by Larry Hama, but it is a remaster of the original art and lovingly recolored to the highest of contemporary standards. This wordless issue introduced the world to Snake Eyes' mysterious nemesis Storm Shadow. So this was the first time we ever saw Storm Shadow and the Ashikage Ninja clan, excuse me, I know I butchered that, and they've never looked better. Plus an unprecedented glimpse of Larry Hama's original layouts and Steve Leiloa's finishes, and a look behind the scenes of the comic's creation and its enduring legacy. I absolutely love reading this. Not so much as something though, after 30 plus years, the story does not hit me the way the story was done and told. The silent part does not hit me the way it did when I was a kid, probably because I've seen many imitators since then. So the novelty of it does not hit me like it did when I was a youngster. I appreciate the precedent that it made on comics then, but the impact for me doesn't do it. I'm assuming if someone getting into comics and they saw that, they would be blown away. But more importantly, I love getting all the information about the behind the scenes story process from Larry Hama. I think just as far as a comic creator in general, I think Larry Hama is very underrated and always been very underrated. And I think because he is so synonymous with G.I. Joe, I don't think he gets the props from sort of a comics legacy standpoint that many of his contemporaries have, which is really sad. But hey, all of us that grew up loving G.I. Joe have Larry Hama to thank for G.I. Joe being what it is then, now, and to quote WWE, forever. So that's my take on G.I. Joe silent interlude on the long box. Now let's go into some fragrances on the Sartorial slice. It is cold as balls outside. It is freezing. It's like 32 degrees outside right now, which makes me yearn for summer. So let's talk about a few fragrances that make me wish it was a whole lot hotter outside. We're just a few days away from the official start of winter, and let me tell you, the temperature's already dropping. We're talking about low 20s already Fahrenheit, which is -4+ degrees Celsius. That's cold bird. It has me yearning for warmer times, warmer weather, especially summer. So with that, this week I'm wearing fragrances that remind me and make me yearn for summer. And first off, I can't not start with this one. And this is Nautical Voyage. This is probably one of the most quintessential summer cheapies that you can buy. It's great price, great smell, great projection, great longevity for what you're paying for. It's just one I think that just fits well in any collection. And for our second fragrance, it makes me yearn for summer. It's one that, while it goes by a different name, you can find it in the same place, and it is Sea Salt and Fig, which can be found in Old Navy. And I believe it runs for about $16 for this 30 ml bottle. It is one that is very unisex. It has that sweetness of the fig, but the saltiness and freshness of the sea salt that makes you feel like you're sitting and enjoying an ocean breeze. With that alone, it makes me feel like the summertime and the beach, and which is a far cry from the coldness that we have now.
And for our third fragrance, it makes me yearn for summer. It's one that especially makes me yearn for summer on this cold, frigid day. It is none other than Kenneth Cole Reaction. With this one, the summer really comes through in notes of watermelon, mandarin orange, and many other fruity fragrance notes of this fragrance. But it is really that patchouli, that musk in the base. It just reeks of manliness and summertime.
And we're back with the fourth installment of fragrances that make me yearn for summer. And this one comes from the house of Kirk Elliott, and it's appropriately named Sensational. With this one, what really gets me and invokes summer for me is, much like Sea Salt and Fig, that sea salt note in this fragrance, but also how it's coupled with that orange blossom, the lime, the pepper. It's just a fragrance where it's a little bit sweet, it's a little bit musky, but definitely evokes summer. And for our fifth installment of fragrances that make me yearn for summer, citrus and those fragrances with heavy citrus notes tend to just do it, because it just reminds you of the brightness, the emotion of being in the sunshine and the heat. And a citrus that I love absolutely is Royal Lime from Royal Lime of Bermuda. With this one, obviously it's called Royal Lime, so lime notes, citrus notes, as well as clove and geranium. It just offers a fresh, enticing olfactory experience that just speaks summertime. And for our sixth installment on our trek for fragrances that make me yearn for the summer, we have to go with, well, it's called summer, right in the name. And we're going with summer vibes from Authenticity Parfums. Now with this one, much like I talked about before with those citrus notes, this one is citrus heavy on the top with bergamot, bitter orange, tamarind with, tangerine with a splash of green apple in there, and then with the lavender, the softness and a little earthiness with the cannabis, and then it really just mellows out with the musk and the amber and the sandalwood and the vetiver on the base. And something about vetiver that just offers a cleanness to these fragrances that just makes it even that much more, makes me yearn for summer. And our 7th installment of fragrances that make me yearn for summer is going back to the house of Royal Lime of Bermuda. And this one, it is Royal Rugby. Now, it does not have dominant citrus notes like some of the other ones from this week, but it does have geranium leaf, patchouli, blackcurrant, but more importantly, that vetiver note is the one that really makes me think of summer. It's so crisp and it's so clean and just so refreshing. And those were fragrances that make me yearn for the summer. This current fragrance is one that is made for the winter and the fall, and it is none other than Villain from Pete and Pedro, inspired by the well-known fragrance Tobacco Vanilla from Tom Ford. This is a stunning manly mix of tobacco, vanilla, tonka, and wood notes perfectly intertwined, leaving both a remarkably warm, rough, rugged feel with a soft, fresh, and sexy vibe. The lasting scent smells so good, it's almost criminal. Let me tell you, this is good. This is so good. This is good. I literally haven't worn it yet. It just came in today at the time of this recording, and just smelling the bottle and the test strips. Oh man, it smells so good. If this doesn't get compliments, I don't know what will. This is one that I'm very, very looking forward to see how this plays in the cold weather, because I feel like this is one of those fragrances that once that cold, crisp air gets it, is just going to carry and ride that wave. Man, I am impressed, and I haven't even worn it yet, but this is one that I'm definitely looking forward. And mind you, I do have an affiliate for Pete and Pedro. I pay for this with my own money, no sort of affiliate kickbacks or anything. I paid full price for this, and it just smells absolutely wonderful. So that's my take on Villain by Pete and Pedro, and I'll get probably more on it next week. I'll probably have it as my what I'm wearing, so I can give a bit more insight as to how my progress was, or how it really did after smelling oh so good. But what am I wearing today? So this week I have been wearing nothing but fragrances from African American fragrance houses. In this case, I'm wearing one that you're probably familiar with from listening to this podcast, and that's Echelon for Men from Kimberly Elise. This is one, it's gonna be Kimberly New York, not Kimberly Elise, the actress. Kimberly New York. This fragrance is one that, while I think is absolutely sensual and unique, it is one that, in my opinion, that is built for the cold weather. It's an eau de parfum concentration. It is one that just irradiates off your skin with the heat. So with that, it has amazing projection and amazing longevity. And in the cool, crisp, and I mean cold air of today, it just was picked up by that air and carried. It is non-stop. It never, ever dissipated. And with top notes of orange zest and aniseed, heart notes of black pepper and musk, and then base notes of leather and mahogany. This is one that I absolutely love, especially for cold, crisp, not just cool, but downright frigid days like today. So that's what I'm wearing today, Echelon for Men from Kimberly, New York. Now, speaking of supporting us, as I talked about with Pete and Pedro being an affiliate, how can you support us? Well, you can become a producer on Patreon for the low price of $1 a month by being an associate producer, associate producer, and executive producer at $1, $3, and $5. Gets you different access to a multitude of high quality content that you will find nowhere else on the web. Also, you can use our affiliate link to Pete and Pedro Tobacco Vanilla, which is what the Tom Ford fragrance that Villain is based off of. Villain is inspired by that, and it is only $49 for a 50 ml bottle. All of their fragrances are just $50. Excuse me, $49 for 50 mLs. And with all the other products on Pete and Pedro, you can get 10% off your first purchase by using the code EHawks10 or the link in the show notes. Also, try out W Energy Drink. You can get 10% off your first purchase using the code WebsterMan or the link in the show notes. Be sure to check me out every week with my man Brian Saff over on Nerds Rule the World with the NRW Checkpoint as we talk about the latest and greatest in video games. And don't forget, check me out on social media, on Instagram on Webster Style or at Webster Style and Sartorial Geek, on Twitter at Webster Style, and on TikTok at _Webster Style. Make sure you look for anything and everything that is Webster Style, websterstyle.com. And make sure you drop us a note via email on info@websterstylemagazine.com. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your listening ear. And remember, stay safe out there and be blessed.